day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now I'm back with another walk up the tower, and this time the craziness is still going to ensue. We're doing 181 up to 190. Now unfortunately on this part I actually had done part of the video, actually almost was complete, so you're going to see me doing it a lot more fluently, a lot more easily. The reason is why I do it in the way that I do it normally is because it allows me to not spoil too much of the episode if you are deciding to read through the comics, so that you can actually read through, and then when we reach the end I explain everything. This time things might be slightly different, so I'm really sorry if it does ruin it for you. If you are someone who's reading through the comics and you wanted the piece by piece, I would suggest that you read all 10 episodes before you hit this here. So yeah, let's go. Okay, so it starts off with Kun and his team walking through the pipe, and basically they explain that there's a very bad probability because they haven't been attacked as yet and they haven't run into anybody as yet. That means that all the other teams are engaged in combat and everybody else is gaining more power, gaining more dollar. And for them to run into a team with more dollar means that they will be in a very big problem. So for example, if Kun's team ran into, say for example, White's team, who obliterated just about everybody else, it would mean that he could just open any doors that they closed and keep following them at full speed. So that would be a very big problem. So we see that there is explained between Kun, Danwa and Arwen, and then we get back to the fight with Vincent and White. At this point we see that Wagner says that he's strong, and we see that he's wondering if he'll really be able to deal with White. We then see White and Vincent get into a talk, and we see them have a flashback of their past. Now in the flashback of the past we see that between Vincent and White, neither one has ever beaten the other, and we understand the reason for this here from their fighting style. Vincent is a defensive user, so all his skills are defensive, while White is an offensive user and literally obliterates people with forward-facing power. That is the way in which White fights. And we find out that White had never ever beaten Vincent ever before, because that is the way that Vincent is. Vincent is just very good in defense. Then we found out that the reason why Vincent agreed to it and why all the other siblings agreed to the merging was because they agreed with what White's goal was. He wanted to become the family leader. His goal was to overtake the taboo they called father. And we see that that is the thing which brought them all together. And we see that Vincent disparages White a little bit. He says that after he gained the power, he extorted their powers and he used it to eat many others' souls to become even stronger. And that's all that his power is. We then get a fight with Sachi and Anna's door, and we see that Sachi decides to release his limiter and actually start fighting seriously. He's one of the top 3 D-class regulars, so he starts using his power properly, and he instantly takes down the doll that was being used. Then we see aka William and Boro are busy screaming about their past, and we see that aka William hates Boro not because he's a coward and ran away, but because he decided to take it on himself to try and keep searching for Rowena. Then we see that aka William's team shows up and they basically help them escape the jar that would liquefy them into souls for eating. Then we see that White says that Vincent is just trying to take everything away from him and that he knows nothing. And we see that they keep fighting, and he basically says that their siblings wouldn't agree with Vincent taking the power, and then Vincent said one of them already accepted this as the way they will do things. And then he sees another one of his brothers in possession of Wagnan's body. That's David. Okay. So at this point we see that David starts speaking, and And he says that he wasn't a participant in the game, so he had to borrow this body for a bit, and that's how they're fighting. We then get a quick throwback to Baum and the rest of the team, and they're flying through the pipes at high speed, and Baum basically explains they weren't given an instruction not to damage the pipes, so he's going to create a short path using the pipes. So he instantly smashes through one of the pipes, pulls it up into the air, and makes a shortcut so that he's closer to where White is. And then we see that White tries to figure out exactly how this happened, and he figures out that Daniel had been helping Vincent and Wagnan's team this whole time to get other copies of White into helping them. And we see that there was a code, and they were using Emily to talk to each other. The code was Rowena. At this point, we see that White is stabbed with the White Heavenly Mirror. And here is something which is really, really crucial to this whole craziness. Had they simply stabbed White through the heart and pulled him into the blade, White couldn't do anything. No matter how powerful he was, it was over. White was stuck in the blade, and he most definitely could not escape it. And that would have been the end of it for White. We then see that the rest of AKA's team helps Borrow break the jar that was trying to liquefy their souls. And we then see that Vincent had made a deal with David that David would get to be his own person after this whole merging of just the souls that of the 4 siblings together instead of all the siblings together. And then we see that White says they'll never be able to eat his soul, and he then says he told them a lie long ago. And we get the hint of the name of the 4 siblings. That's Vincent, Anna, David, Albelda, and Haquin. So that was the 5 siblings, all of them put together. And we see that he told them a lie that he found the spell book of an ancient demon. In fact, he was actually given the spell by the demon himself, and the demon himself was resting inside him. So the core of the body had already been decided before they even went into the merge. He was already decided to be the center from the very beginning, and that's how come he will always be the center. At this point, he pulls in all 3 of his siblings, and White becomes even more powerful. And at this point, we see White emerge, and we see that even Wagner loses the soul that was inside his body. And then we see that White now can break his deal with Daniel, and he can just eat Rowena's soul at the end of this. So that's where 182 ends, and we're on to episode 183. We then see that the liquid is pouring down where Baum is flying up, and Iwa asks him if he is ever afraid. And Baum replies, yeah, he is, and that's why he's trying to stop White at the moment. And at this point, we see that that it switches back to Yuri and Pedro, and she basically gives this crazy little comment, and she says if he doesn't put Baum on and show Baum clearly, she's going to mess up this whole place. And we see that Pedro was shocked that was the problem she had. And we then see that Evan is wondering why in the world would they have 2 Slayer nominees competing with each other, and what type of nominee could compete with an irregular. And then we see that it's Daniel and White, and we see that the rest of the team with AKA William, Sachi, all start heading up towards Daniel. And we see that White explains that the 2 who he absorbed are just a small part of his power, and that once he is complete, he needs his sibling soul so that he can complete the spell on the train and absorb all living souls on board them, along with the souls of all those who have died since the spell was cast. And then we see White stab Daniel and take him down, and we see that Porro is wondering what in the world is going on. We then see the rest of AK Williams' team shows up, and they start screaming to try and help Daniel. And we then see that White tries to make a deal with them. If the three of them volunteer to kill themselves, he will let Daniel live. And basically, they say that's some kind of sick joke, and Sachi decides since he's the strongest, he'll trade himself for Daniel. And White says no, he wants all their lives. And we see that he doesn't really want to engage the three because he's afraid that they might have come up with a way to stop him like they did last time. And at this point, we see Baum shows up and he just says, Mr. White. So basically, instantly knows that they know each other and who they truly are. At this point, we catch up with Kun's team and we see that Casino and Traveler have cut off their team. And from the back, we see that Yura and Rachel show up. And Kun starts thinking, this is going to be really difficult. He would have to fight somebody who's on the same level of skill as Kun Ran in the form of Casino, with just one Devil Ignited. And with two, he'll be on par with him at least Lightning Pearl or double Lightning Pearl. So he's thinking carefully about this whole crazy situation. And on the other side, there's Yuraha. So that is where episode 183 ends, and we're on to episode 184. And we see that they've decided they're going to hunt the fish, and everybody is confronting Kun at that point. We then see that Casino is getting ready to fight, and he's basically doing that exact calculation like I said, and he decides to say that somebody should have caught up by now. And then we see all of a sudden Rak and Idade shows up. At this point, Rak decompresses, and as Casino is about to attack, Idade says she found his weak point, and she grabs Traveler. And basically she says they know that Casino cares for this kid. If he makes any movements, she'll kill him. And Rachel is wondering how in the world did they know where it was. And basically Kun explains he did a bit of tactician work, and he closed the doors behind him so that they would only lose a small amount of dollar to give people a quick passageway to them. And this here was a twofold strategy. So he figured that whoever followed them would either be an enemy or a friend, and if it was an enemy, all he had to do was double up the amount of dollar and close the door on the next door and run away, because that would stop them from being able to open the doors that easily, because most of them wouldn't be that lucky. And he basically said that he wasn't really worried about it because it was more likely in probability that one of his own teammates would end up following the path, because they had more reason to follow it than anybody else, because they knew that another one of their teammates were closing the doors. So Kun basically explains, so neither one of them want to just go off like this here, so why don't they have a match 1v1, Rachel versus Kun. And we see that Kun makes it quite easy. If you accept this here and you win, we'll let the hostage loose, and if we win, we'll take all the dollar from you and y'all can take all the dollar from us. Basically that's the way that it goes, and he'll make it as fair and equal as possible, so neither of them is at a disadvantage. And we see that he decides to go down, and his fair and equal match is a coin toss. His fair and equal match is a coin toss. Sorry, I'm actually getting myself tongue twisted. So the coin toss is a simple matter of luck. So he says that if it's tails, the symbol is heads, and if it's heads, it's the number and he wins. If it's tails, it's the symbol and Rachel wins. And it's a game of just pure luck. It would make no sense for him to face off against her in a battle of strength. He's from the 10 great families, and she's no match for him. And it would make no sense for it to be a match of brain power, because she's too stupid to take him on. So luck is the only way that they can do this here. So we see that Kun decides to go for it, and she says that let's see who God loves more between the two of us. We see Rachel laugh and decide that he should hurry up and toss him to see who wins. We then see it's Baum versus White, and at that point we see that Iwa tries to get to Wagner, and White basically says that that's his food, he shouldn't be touching another person's scrap from his meal. And then basically he says, so you call me White, so you know that I was a slayer from the tower who was here long ago. And he basically disparages Bam, saying that Bam is either very brave or extremely stupid, and that he is almost complete now. And we see that Bam asked him a question, and he heard that he was a slayer, and he wondered how did he lose the position of slayer. So he said that he tried to make an offering of souls, he set up a ritual, and he took about 1 billion lives, and he worked really hard for that mass spell. And that at that point we see Iwa gets angry and tries to attack him with fire, and White instantly puts it off. So he explains his plan failed, but he did not regret it. He just regrets that he was stopped by a princess of Jahad. Oh wait, sorry, no, this isn't at this point. So basically, so he says his plans failed and his powers ended up in the train, and he decided that he would come here, and now he's going to start his legend by cutting Viol's throat. So that is what he intends to do. That's how he intends to make his big resurrection. We then see that Bam just pushes his sword away nonchalantly, and we see that White is shocked. And we see that Bam explains that he doesn't need anything, and we see that White realizes something about him has changed, and you see that Bam says that he's going to stop him no matter what. Then we see that White attacks, and we see that Bam moves a lot faster than he did before, and he's shocked that Bam actually managed to dodge the attack. And then we see that everybody else starts attacking, and Sachi's spell of thorns is attempted to be used against White, and he basically pulls it off. And we see everybody tries to stop White at that point, and then Bam goes straight at him and sends a blow. And you can see that Bam has changed a lot and that he's become a lot more powerful. And we then see that he tries to use a crazy attack, and everybody basically gathers together. And we see that Evan and Yuri are actually worried for a moment over there. Yuri is worried about the fact that it might hurt Bam or get his face banged up. And we see Evan is worried that Yuri might lose her life. And then we see that White figures that he's still missing way too much of power even after absorbing all 3 of those souls. We then see Bam grabs the white heavenly mirror, and he then rushes to pull away Wagnan and another soul from around that area. And then we see that a plan was hatched by Daniel for him to get close and pull out the soul of at least one of White's clones using the white heavenly mirror. Now, this is the point where some continuity and silliness is actually played into this. If they could actually get this close to White, they could simply put White inside this here and pull him out of the train without him being complete, because he has a contract to be complete, and by releasing him out into the real world, they simply break his contract and he'll lose the ability to complete his spell. That way there, he won't be able to become complete and he'll break apart. Now obviously that is known by Daniel. Daniel could have simply explained that there, because basically there's no chance of him getting Rowena back, and there might have been another way to do it if one of the other siblings did it by taking in White, or without White there if they wanted to separate. That's all they had to truly do. So we see that Daniel explained that he chose the Hell Train because of the number of souls that were on board, and that it would be able to restore his power. We then see that it swaps back to the game with Kun and Rachel, and we see that Kun tosses the coin, and that is where 185 ends. So we're on to episode 186. Now at this point we see the coin is tossed, and the coin is tossed, and it's a win for Kun. At this point, Rachel starts whining and squealing, even though they decided that this year would be that there was a fair match, and then Rachel complains that it was his lighthouse and his coin, he could have played a trick, and that's the way that it is. And then she puts up a little bit of a wager. So why don't they try again for the last round? If he wins, he'll find out everything about what happened with Bam. And basically Kun was really interested in this, so he decides to go with it. And we then see that he decides he'll go for another round, and at this point Rachel tosses the coin and she wins. And then we see that Kun says that doesn't that prove that the game was fair from the start? So let's play one more round. If they do it right now, his teammates will object to it because it's one, he won in the first round and it's proven that it's fair. And two, whoever wins twice over would be a fair and square winner because 1-1 from each side would make it fair and square, and basically 2-1 would be the fair winner overall. There's no way that they could lose, and they're going to make it very fair, so they're going to get Rak to toss the coin so that there's absolutely no chance of any trickery, at which point Rachel figures that Rak is too stupid to be able to rig a coin, and that is the way that it is. At this point, Wari Yun gets involved and she says basically Kun doesn't know who will win, but basically the probability is fixed. It's more than likely to be heads because it's a 50% chance the coin will land on either side. And at this point, Kun believes that even though there is a chance that Rachel will win, God would never allow her to have that much of a chance. So basically they toss the coin and it ends up a win for Kun. And basically Wari Yun felt that that was a very, very risky gamble, but she understood where he came from. We then swap back over to the fight with White and Balm, and we see that Balm starts charging in and everybody starts helping with his attack. Yua fires a fire blast, and we see that Sachi fires his thorns, and then at that point we see that even AKA tries to intervene in it. Balm manages to fight off White, and then basically we see that he's almost at his limit, and then AKA says that all you need to do is stab him. Then all you need to do is hold him with reverse flow control for a second. She'll hold him, and then all he needs to do is pull the soul out. So they do this here, and the moment White gets free, he stabs AKA Williams, and AKA Williams grabs him, and then Balm stabs White. And basically we see Yuri is super excited about it, and they were hoping that Balm could pull out one of the clones, and basically we see White explain that the plan failed, and after that we see that Kun heads out to the exit and the game ends. At this point we see that White explains that the soul is completely absorbed, and as he's pulling out the knife from White, we see that the round has ended and that they're going to settle this here in the final round. So 168 is finished and it moves 186 is finished and it moves on to 187. So we see that they decide that that's how it's gonna go. We see that AKA Williams is AKA is really sad, and we see that he's explaining everything from the past. They go through a flashback of what happened, and basically I'm not going to go through it all over again. I have explained it. Rowena killed one of White's members because he was torturing Poro. Daniel covered it up, and in the end the whole thing ended up being a whole miserable situation. It comes out again later. I'll explain it to the end at that point. And basically AKA Williams is so sad that he didn't fulfill his role as defender, because the defender is supposed to be the first one to ever die in a team. We then see that it swaps to Prince, Arkraptor, and Misang, and Prince said he saw a white person not so long ago. And we see that White is feeling the sensation of his clone inside the final room, and when he enters he sees that there's just two survivors, Yura, Ha, and Rachel. Then we see that Poro realizes that White is going to betray them, and he's hoping that Balm wins basically. And finally everybody arrives in the core. They pull everybody in, and we see they all start talking, and Balm says he's really sorry for dragging them all into this here. He didn't realize that White was actually once a ranker, and that the enemy would be way too dangerous for them to fight like that, and that there's a spell on the train that could kill them all if he fails. We see that White disparages Yuraha and Rachel, and basically that the only reason they're there is that Kun gave $1 to Rachel and $1 to Uraha so that they could survive to the final round. And we see that at this point, Pedro decides that the winner will be crowned soon, and basically he expects that he's going to be able to kill Yuri soon. So that's how it ends, and then we get the whole team meeting up in the core. We then get the last clone of White show up, and basically she says that Poro forgot to introduce her. She'll be the main participant in this round. Then she goes and she speaks to Bam, and she explains that she's the last clone. And we see that White explains that she isn't one of his siblings, and she says that you can feel it, that she is the last clone. And we then see that Evan looks through at the screen and he says, "This kid is tremendously powerful," and that is where 187 ends. We're on to 188. So this clone is actually supposed to be Albelda, and we see that she has such tremendous power she could be higher than a Rancor. And we see at that point that Yuri says that they tricked her, and she looks at Pedro with a dirty look. And we see that White and the clone speak, and then she speaks to Bam, and she looks at him and she says that he looks too kind to be roaming around in the darkness. And we see that everybody tries to chase her away, and basically she convinces Poro that she will do exactly what was promised by White. She'll revive Rowena, but there is one additional catch. They must be allowed for her to intervene in this game at any point. So the clone basically says, "I may be one of your clones, White, but I never said I'm on your side, and you have to show me that you're worthy of the right of this power." And basically that's how it goes. At this point, they then start explaining the name of the game, which is Go to Hell. We see that the hostages will be used for this game, and it's actually played in a very simple way. So each hostage will be lowered down the tube, and they will have to spend the dollar they have made so far to either save or sacrifice hostages. So this is how it goes. Each hostage will be lowered into the tube. They'll be shot down the entire process till they reach the boiling hot acid at the bottom. If anybody hits the acid, they instantly melt away. One of the members of the team will open out the pod and release the hostage, and depending on what level the hostage is at, it will cost you a certain amount of dollar to open the tent below their feet and jump down to save the hostage, or to stop the other team from saving the hostage. And that is the way that this crazy game works. And the place where the choices are made is called the submarine of choice. Now in the submarine of choice, there are two choices that can be made to raise the level of the acid so that they kill the other team member, and they could possibly kill the person who's trying to save the team member if they do it, or to open the submarine to save the life. So those are the two things that they can choose. So for every successful save, the team will receive $10, but if they fail, they lose all the dollar, and they endanger their own life for that round. So that's how it's basically explained. We then see that Prince is the first one lowered down into it, and we see that he is lowered. We then see that they decide who is going to be part of their submarine of choice, and Rachel decides she will be there for White's team, and Kun decides he will go for Bam's team. And we see that the two will face off against each other again. And we see that Rachel explains that she knows that this game is totally unfavorable to Bam. So we see that that if they bet all of their dollar and they don't save a hostage, they instantly lose the game. That's the way that it goes. And we see that they explain that White will sacrifice his teammates, no problem, but Bam can't do it. He knows he won't be able to sacrifice people. So that is how this is going to go. And then we see that they start lowering Prince into the whole thing, and we see that the price is starting to decrease quickly. We see it's going 95, 80, 75, 60, 65, 55, 50. So basically the price for opening is going down quicker and quicker. And we see that Pedro explains that they did hide something, that this is a slayer on the train, and an extremely murderous one named White. So we see that this is explained, and he's infamous for all kinds of cruel and heinous acts, and basically mass murder and cursing civilians in the tower. He's done all these crazy things, and that in the end he was defeated by a princess from Jahad. Then he disappeared somewhere in the tower, and these are his clones, the two that they're seeing, the white individuals. And Yuri is wondering how in the world can someone who's already been a ranker become a regular again. That's impossible. And basically Pedro says sometimes strange things happen in this world, especially in this world where they live in. And we see that Pedro explains that on the surface everything is legit because the two the two entities from the ranker are regulars right now. They don't break the rules, but the only two who are breaking the rules are Evan and the princess. And we see that Pedro says that they can't do anything, and they can't report this to the family of Jahad and get the authority to step in and break through everything. And then we see that Evan says the family of Jahad has already approved this, and that basically the glasses that he's wearing have a record and send function, and basically the one who sent us here is a major geek, and basically it's somebody who has the Lighthouse Opera, and the thing is connected to these glasses, the Infinite Eye, the greatest being in the tower, the only method of communication that not even a train closed off to the outside world can stop. And basically they explain that Rapalista Jahad has been seeing everything that's here. So basically Yuri says that it's time for him to stand up, it's time for them to fight, things are going to end in a different order, and she still believes Baam will win. So that is the shocking part of all of this. And we see for $30 Baam decides to descend for saving Prince, and he starts moving down, and they wonder if White will also jump down to stop Baam. Baam goes all the way down, and then he quickly saves Prince. And then we see that Rachel starts playing coy with Kun. Kun already knew that Baam wasn't going to allow his enemies to die, and she basically uses that as the fact why she knows their team will win. Then we see that Prince is back, and he is basically feeling very humiliated, and they wonder if $30 was good. And basically they explain there's only 3 hostages who are going to go through this whole process, so $30 was a good figure to use. So next they lower a hostage from White's team, and we see that they'll decide whether or not to save him. And we see that this time whoever it is there, and it's Bolsa, the mad dog of Yama. And they begin loading the hostage, and it starts, and we see that White starts talking to Balm, and he explains that he was a monarch on one level of this tower, and he once became king of a land on the outer area. This is actually very important. I actually have to explain it. And basically, there was a corrupt king in one of the lands, and he killed him, and he became the savior of these people. And those who he had saved eventually raised up in their own monarchy, and they became the corrupt leaders. And then he turned the rebellion, and he managed to get two sides to a war, and they would always fight with each other. And whenever peace broke out, he'd make sure that the war started again, and that they'd keep killing each other endlessly. And eventually, this is how he managed to get his way, and that is how he managed to get them both to believe in him as two different entities. And we see that White explains that all he has to do is sacrifice his teammates, and that's how it's going to go. We see that the figure starts counting down, and it goes 15, 10, and all of a sudden, from Balm, Sachi feels bloodlust, which is something he hasn't ever felt from Balm before. And now we are on to episode 190. We see Balm tells White to take it back, and that at least this member of his team fought for him. And we see that that really brought out the bloodlust in Balm. And we see that Balm really starts talking back, and he decides that he will save the enemy. And at a cost of 4, at 5 he decides to descend to save him, and he demands that Khun release him, and he does it, and he opens and he saves Bulza, the mad dog of Yama. And basically that is how Balm is, and Balm saved his enemy. And we see that Khun actually disparages Rachel as well. She could have killed Balm for $10. All she had to do was raise the level of the acid, and she would have killed a teammate and Balm at the same time. And basically, he says that she should make up her mind. If she doesn't want Balm to survive, she should have just killed him, and she mustn't play the good guy for no reason. And White says Khun says that he will completely follow Balm's decisions from here on out. Then we see that White says this is going to cost him some of his companions, and he tells White that he's going to save everyone. And we see that basically Rachel explains if they save all the hostages, then there's no way they will win. And we see that Khun decides that no, this game isn't actually between Rachel and Khun. This is between Balm and Rachel to see who wins. And basically he says if you lose here, it means you lose to Balm, and that Balm has always been superior to you. Then we see that everybody is looking, and we see that the team of Boros, Sachi, Daniel, and AK Williams are thinking about the way Balm is behaving, and the fact that he has decided he's going to save everyone. We then see that Pedro and Yuri get into their fight, and they're getting ready, and they're about to engage. And then we see that they start their fight, and now this is a rankers fight, so you have to understand this is crazy. Yuri uses one of her punches, and we see that the conductor actually survives. And we see that the conductor had a scout. Sorry, not a scout, an observer. And basically he says this is a gift from Karaka, the purple Dementor. And only the train master has authority to use it, and basically and that it's powerful enough that even high rankers fear it when it's in use. And then we see that Yuri is getting excited, and she says it won't be that easy to the princess. That's what Pedro tells Yuri, and that is where episode 190 ends. Now let's go through everything that happened in this here. So we find out more about the whole story with White. We find out that the reason why he's here is the Princess of Jahad basically gave him a beat down and split him into his pieces, and that is how come he is on the Hell Train. Beyond that, we find out two other things which are really important to all of this insanity going on the train at this moment. We find out that we find out that from all the craziness that Pedro has been doing on the train, he hid the fact that White was a ranker. Now, naturally speaking, a ranker versus a regular is illegal. The moment White becomes a ranker again, I suspect that the administrator will step in and boot him out of the level, because he's not allowed on the train and he would be within a regular's area. And basically I'm expecting White to be killed by the administrator for his interference, because that's the way that the administrators work. He's not allowed to interfere in regular areas. And with all of that being said, there's even more going on. The fact that Yuri isn't allowed on the train, and that Pug is playing with technicality to stay in the rules, all of that is being pulled out on this level. We then also have the hint that Rapalista has been watching everything which is going down, because she's using an opera, and the opera is so powerful that it can overdo the protection the train has against outside communication. So all of this was explained to us, and then we get the hint that Emily is actually that powerful, on the same level as an opera in terms of usability and power. So all of this was being highlighted to us, and that is where everything ends for us for this point in the tower. So moving from this point onwards, we'll be going through the final part of the Slayer nominee competition, and from there we'll end up with the next exhibition of the Hell Train, which is going to be the Name Hunt station, and that is going to be totally crazy. So I hope to catch you all over there, and I know this wasn't in depth of an explanation. The whole thing about the probability, I actually have to explain that before I go there. Sorry, when it came to Kun and Rachel's little match, couldn't believe that Rachel deserves nothing, and that God would be fair and punish her for all that she is trying to take. That she's trying to take way more than she deserves, and she's already gotten way more than she deserved, so God would never allow her to win. Technically speaking, he's playing with luck, and when he wins, it basically amounts it to the God never ever wanting her to have more luck than she's already forced upon herself, and that this is all that she will ever get. And that is how it goes, and that is why Kun took the risk that he did, believing in this year so passionately. So I will catch you all in the next one, catch you all in 191 up to 200 pages into chapter 2. That makes it 280 up at that point. So see you all then, and have a good day.